This is the Internet Court of Truth and Lies. Its function is if you find something in the media that you think is the truth or you think it's a lie, then you can bring your case to up to 8 jurors to see what they think about whether it's the truth or a lie, or at least see how they think about it. We structure the dialogue so that it doesn't go off track. We have 8 verdict questions that have to be answered for any claim of a truth or a lie. But the 8 verdict questions are never the right questions. Their function is really just to keep the dialogue on track as to whether or not something's a truth or a lie. And it has to do with presuppositions in the word, some linguistic considerations, and also some legal. For example, in most countries, when you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, that is grounds for putting you in a situation where you can be susceptible to perjury because you've taken an oath to do those things. And so those are the first 3 questions, for example. But it's really just to keep the function for the person who's claiming something's a truth or a lie. He sees how other people could think about it. And those people can see also how other people think about it. The other thing is we don't reach a final judgment. This is not a sovereign court where we're trying to determine whether something is a truth or a lie. We're letting each person bring it up to themselves, and that's their business on whether or not they come away with it believing that it's actually a truth or a lie. Today, we're doing an article I wrote on Medium, which was caused by a guy named Dallin Kobelik, who is an American citizen who worked in the intelligence agencies for years and years, retired. He married a Ukrainian lady, and he lives in Kiev. He's one of the best journalists on the Ukrainian-Russian war in the sense that his stories are really stories of having to do with what's happening in his day-to-day life and what he's seeing from his perspective, background in government, U.S. government, intelligence services, and what he's seeing in the interactions between the Ukrainians and the Russians. And he also has some views on what goes on in the United States because he's still an American citizen. A few weeks ago, he wrote an article, which is pointed to in this thing, where he mentioned, I learned a new word today. Mythomaniac is someone who suffers from mythomania, which is characterized by a compulsive tendency to lie and exaggerate, often without clear motivation. Now, he's doing this in the context of this war, where he's noticing that there's a lot more lying going on. There are a lot more mythomaniacs around, or they're more obvious. And he says that this goes beyond pathological lying in a few ways. He's not a psychologist. He doesn't really understand pathological lying, but it's okay for him to say that. The scale of the lies is greater. So pathological lying, I think he means somebody just lies all the time. Salesmen lie all the time, I believe. Okay, lots of salesmen there. So mythomania, the scale of the lies is greater. It isn't just about personal accomplishments. Now he's getting into the mythology. They claim they were special forces in the military, whether they were or were not, telling everyone they're successful businessmen who consistently underperform the stock market. They try to make themselves heroic, victimized, important, and extraordinary, often believing they deserve praise and recognition. I know people like this. It typically involves constructing an ongoing fictional life narrative rather than simply telling frequent lies. And I believe that in his role as a journalist who's interacting with the public all the time, he's not interacting with other journalists all the time, that he's encountering these kind of people all the time who make claims that they're something special where they're not, and they're trying to convince him of things or trying to whatever. I thought that was a really cool term. It really didn't get any deeper than that. What I argue in this paper I wrote is that it is true that mythomania is a dazzling type of lying. In books on lying, dazzling is when you lie in a way that's unbelievably weird. That's a major type of lying that's documented throughout history, associated with sociopathic or psychopathic lack of empathy. It's those last two. He reverses that in his paper. He says that if you're a sociopath or a psychopath, then it's probable that you might be also a mythomaniac. I'm saying that if you're a psychopath, chances are you engage in mythomania. In other words, because of that lack of empathy. In other words, you will tell people lies about yourself, particularly if it's to gain power. As sociopaths and psychopaths, that's what they're trying to do most of the time. Mythomania, I think, is type of sociopathy and psychopath. It's what you call the dazzling type of lies associated with sociopathy and psychopath. That's basically what my article is arguing. And since this is a kind of a new word, I'd never heard it before. Dallin had never heard it before. I think it's just a really cool term. My argument is that this is the truth, that mythomania is a dazzling type of lying associated with sociopathic or psychopathic lack of empathy. And I believe that's where it really comes from. Because if you lie about whether you were in a war last week to somebody, that's a lack of empathy for them because you don't care what they think. You hope that they will take the lie and believe. It's just evil. So I say, is it the truth? I say yes. Dollar was right. This is not a form of psychosis. It's a form of sociopathic or psychopathic lack of empathy. It has a specific cause in perceptron theories of brain computation, which I could get into. Is it the whole truth? I said yes, although I suspect that Brian, in a minute, will talk about what he's calling systemic mythomania, which is new. I think it's a new concept. So the way Dylan's talking about it is you're a mythomaniac. It's a person. A sociopath is a person. A psychopath is a person. But a system could be engaged in mythomania, which is really interesting at the system we're doing it. So right now we're dealing with a word that's, I think, new and will come into our language with an enhanced meaning, which in any natural language, new words that stick are words that have a meaning that you really can't find another word for. And this one might be a candidate for that. It'll be interesting to see what happens. Is it nothing but the truth? Mythomania is a pretty clear example of something that's nothing but the truth. I don't see anything beyond it other than the fact that you could find people like this. What's the deceit? I think there's no deceit. Of course, I'm the person. I think that Dylan was not deceiving. He was telling the truth too. He's a really good journalist. If you read him, he's hard to take as somebody who has a stance one way or the other. He's really got nothing to lose. He's ex-intelligence. He's not running for office. Is the truth intended? I think the truth is intended. What's the motivation behind the truth or lie? I think it's just to be informative. I think he just found this an interesting word, wrote it up, and I like it. I think it would be really neat if other people used the word. I've already used the word a couple of times this week on total strangers, and they picked up on it. What's the social acceptability of the truth or lie? It's acceptable. I think it's a great new term. There are plenty of mythomaniacs around. And what label would improve this? I said basically no label is needed. So that's basically my interpretation of this thing. I'm going to go through the jurors and ask each juror for 20, 30-second summary of their verdict. Juror one.
Hello. I agree with you. I like that term, and I actually know a person that is fits it to a T, has this whole made up life. It's just ridiculous. But anyway, I like it, and I'm gonna probably be using this all week too.
Yeah, you try it on some people. It's an interesting thing to see what they say because it's a brand new. I don't think has anybody ever heard this word before? Because I haven't.
No, I haven't.
I haven't until this case
No,
here.
Yeah, I haven't looked it up in the dictionary, but I doubt if it's even there. And if somebody wants to look it up while we're sitting, but
I can't really add anything.
juror two.
yeah, hey Bob, I'm juror too. To that point about mythomania, I love the word as a concept, but stepping back a little bit, a word this big to me implies systemic lying, a lie that is at the nation state level, that has nation state support.
I
And
really like
this is
that. I
something,
think that's a great way to do it.
thank you, thank you. And this is something that, because you hear, oh, he's a compulsive liar, he's a pathological liar. And that's a very individual thing
Yeah.
that explains a habit of lying. Mythomania is something, I'm going to use it to describe systemic lying in this case. The Soviet Union instituted Operation SIG back in the early 1900s as a blatantly global propaganda war against Jews. And this is well documented. I actually did a truth court trial on this back in 2024, which is the first link in the chat. I included a number of references. And so I've done trials on this. I've studied this for years, but pretty much every negative thing you've ever heard about Jews or Israel was manufactured by the Soviet Union or Arab media over the past 80 years. Al Jazeera, as a matter of fact, publishes in two languages, Arab and English, Arabic and English. And Arabic Al Jazeera almost always presents a message which is much more volatile and much more violent compared to what's presented in English because framing matters and it's intended to maintain a narrative which is abjectly false.
Yeah.
So all these things are well documented. I've included links to some of my sources in the chat, but I have tons more as well.
Have
So
you
I
written
love the
an
term
article?
mythomania.
Have you gotten around to writing an article on this?
No, most of my writing is obviously legal in nature,
Yeah.
and I don't know where I would publish it anyway. I
Yeah.
could, but
It
yeah.
sounds like you've got enough information that you might
Anyone
be.
who's interested,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah. So juror three.
That's me. This is a pretty interesting word. It's something I'm definitely going to be diving into more today, I believe. Checking out because it's
So you
got
don't
a lot of.
disagree, you don't disagree with me.
No, I don't. Not really at all.
Okay.
No.
Juror four.
That's me, Bob. Yeah, I learned a new word. It's interesting word. I put it in Chat GPT. That comes from Greek mythos and mania, meaning madness. Yeah, but an interesting word. But I think what confuses me is I think a sociopath and a psychopath are types of mythomaniacs, and I think you said it the other way around.
Yeah, in my paper, I was saying it the other way around. I was saying that a sociopath or a psychopath is likely to be a mythomaniac. So when he's lying, he's doing it. When he's lying about himself, he's lying it to hurt you,
Yeah,
if only to take advantage of you, okay? Or
yeah,
to look better in order to get something from you, right? Power. So I see it the other way around, and quite frankly, the way you see it is exactly the way Dylan saw it. He saw it kind of the other way around. And of course, we won't really know until if it becomes a real word, then we can look in the dictionary 10 years and see it and then read the definition of it in the dictionary to see what
yeah,
the actual people who know something about definitions of words and
yeah. I
so
tried to see when was the term actually coined, and
I
I can't
think
seem to get.
it just came out of Ukraine. He's only interacting with Ukrainians. That's the people he interacts with. And he said he heard a new word. He heard it
Okay.
from a Ukrainian. I guess he might have been listening to it on some media or something. Maybe that. I have no idea. I did reach out to him to see if he would respond, and he didn't.
I
Yeah.
just put it back into ChatGPT, It was coined by French psychiatrist Ernest Dupree.
Cool. When?
That's
Did it say when?
in 1905.
Yeah, that sounds about that guy named Dupree. I think I know who he is. That was the reason I was asking when. So that's a guy that I think I know about. And so it's really interesting. But it is a word that's been coined already.
Yeah.
So fortunately, he's dead. We don't have to ask him what it means.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah. Juror 5.
That would be me. Yes, I did just a basic Google AI modes search for the term and got quite a lengthy definition. It implies that it's almost a synonym with pathological lying, but more expansive. Brian makes a good point that maybe in actual usage, it's applied more to social personality, a personality disorder that's distributed widely in a certain society and therefore taken advantage of by populist leaders and whatnot to manipulate people. Yes, I've been following Dylan, the writer of that article, since the beginning of the Ukrainian war.
What do you think?
And I've corresponded with him quite a bit. And I've done a lot of study because of the war into it. I studied Russian in college and all that kind of stuff. So there is definitely the Google AI mode thing. It listed out psychological disorders commonly associated with this condition, with mythomania. And the one that I think was most widely applicable is just, let me pull it up real quick. I posted a chat. Yeah, so they listed the borderline personality disorder as the most common cause of mythomania. It says, while less calculated, people with borderline personality disorder may exhibit extreme dishonesty. This is often, and this is the important part, a reflexive or impulsive defense mechanism driven by an unstable sense of self, deep shame, and intense fear of abandonment or rejection. And I think if you study the history of Russia and its relationship with its dictators over the centuries, I think this is the relationship. They're constantly talking about how great they are. They exaggerate how great they are. They have no memory of the wars they've lost, yet they have this deep sense of shame and intense fear that without this strong center, they'll be abandoned. I think this is the context that within which Dylan was using the term.
So what do you think of him? Did you think that how I described him was okay? I've never met anybody who also reads him.
He had good reasons in his background of his life to be attracted to Eastern Europe as a retirement option. So he thought he had it all set up and was going to be everything hunky-dory, and then Putin messed up his plan. Yeah. He's devoted himself to support his family there and everything now. So he's devoted himself to helping Ukraine resist the Russian invasion.
But I see him as a journalist. I don't know if you see him as a journalist. He's not obviously a professional journalist, right?
He's very rational. He's very systematic in his analysis, and he's a talented writer, knows how to coin phrases.
I actually think he is telling the truth as he sees all the time as best he can.
It's not difficult to accuse Russian society of needing a psychological makeup.
It's interesting that you've been reading him. So I think he's pretty good. I actually went out on X and said the mass media should take some lessons from Dylan on how to be a good journalist. I'd like more of those guys out there.
I'm finished.
Juror 6.
Oh, yeah, that's me. We seem to have forgotten that the symptom has been described already in literature. It's called Munchausen's syndrome, which is very similar to this idea of the mythomania.
I've forgotten this. Oh, wow. Yeah.
That
and
hypochondriac.
No,
what?
You're right.
That and the term hypochondriac.
It's been adapted to there's quite an interesting, it's spread into healthcare where people, invent illnesses for themselves. And also there's Munchausen's syndrome by proxy, in which caretakers invent illnesses for the people they're looking after. That's a sort of narrow subset, but the general idea of the Munchausen syndrome is people who and it's considered an illness, they just lie about their stories, about what they've done, about everything in this kind of brilliant storytelling fashion.
I totally gapped on that one. I should have thought of that, but I didn't.
What's interesting, I think, about the way you've been describing mythomania is that it's a function of their illness, the sociopathology, but it also is an intention behind it, which is, as you said earlier, to gain power or to gain ascendancy in some way over someone. Whereas I think the generally accepted Munchausen syndrome is just an illness where people just lie, but there isn't a sensation that they're desperate to get power over you or further some kind of other interest,
Yeah.
which maybe mythomania covers rather than Munchausen
It
syndrome.
also mentioned, I can't say the word, but that syndrome is, to me, interpreted it as if it was mythomania. So I realized that you're right on how you were defining whatever it is, syndrome.
Munchausen, yes, syndrome.
Munchausen. I'd always interpreted it as if just as like he's defining mythomania. I never really paid much attention to those kinds of things.
Yeah.
It's an interesting thing. So this wow. Okay, so you're 7 or over there.
Yes, I think it's safe to say we've all learned a new word today because it's also my first time hearing this word mythomania. But the way you've described it made it sound familiar, of which I think is really closely related to sociopath and psychopath. I've came across people who lie for no reason and they themselves end up starting to believe those lies. But I was looking at an article because I wanted to see what causes it. And it says it's usually psychological state, past traumas, or environmental influences. And it also stated that what's this word? Mythomania is not mythomania is it's not a standalone illness, but it also seen as a symptom of other disease. So I think I'm more interested in knowing the causes and the symptoms of it. And I think today I'm not sleeping.
Yeah, I think that we don't really know, although the Munchausen syndrome thing, people have actually talked about causes of that. With sociopathy and psychopathy, we know that it's learned. We know it's not genetic. That's been deeply studied. All kids experiment with lying early. And if their parents basically let them get away with it, lying for their own gain, then the parents may well grow a sociopath. Now, psychopaths are murderous sociopaths, but so they have to have other environmental things. But we do know that it's not really inherited and it's learned. And it typically is learned early when the child first starts experimenting with lying and the parents don't tell them you can't do that. It doesn't take much to stop it, by the way, to stop it early. You don't have to be some person who's worried about it all the time. It's just if you reinforce a kid for his lies or let him get away with it, then he learns that he can get things by lying. And after a while, he does it systematically to his own benefit. You can always lie on the lies, which people think is smart, but no, anybody can do that kind of stuff. You lie about a lie of metal, on and on. So you deny it, or you say, no, I wasn't the one who lied, he did, or whatever. The kind of stuff is allowed to, so it's learned. Mythomania, I wouldn't know, on the top of my head, I wouldn't know how to deal with that. I actually like what Brian was saying, which is what makes mythomania an interesting term is it potentially could really apply to systemic governmental control. It was not individual mythomania, but mythomania that spread as disinformation or propaganda to support a government.
Yeah, and also the brilliancy of origin stories and things like that about nations here.
Yeah. That was just So juror 8.
I'm not seeing a juror 8, Bob. I don't know if they were finalized or what.
Yeah, I don't either. They may not have shown up. So this sounds good. Okay, so we'll see y'all.
All right, bye.
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 Bye, y'all.